Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. I'm Rick Plaskett, a certified business and leadership coach here in Columbus, Ohio. And today my guest is Anthony Regalado. He is the owner and the creator of Anarco Labs. And Anarco Labs is a company that helps startups and small businesses to modernize business processes using modern technology, i.e., AI. Today, we're going to talk to him a little bit about his business, about some of the challenges that he's had, some of his best practices, and share a peek into what it's really like to build and operate a business today. If this is your first time on the channel, please be sure to like and subscribe. This is where you'll get future notifications of conversations just like today. So, Anthony, welcome and thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me, Rick.
Hey, let's give the audience a little bit of a background on what got you here with Anarco Labs and just exactly what Anarco Labs is.
Definitely. When I was 25, I was born in Los Angeles, California. I was 25 after I graduated from Bowling Green State University, and I decided to go to Latin America. And in Latin America, I started consulting tech companies there with their talent, with their recruiting, and understanding what exactly were the skills that they needed. And I built my first AI. This was pre-Chat GPT. And what we know of today with AI is that it's a way to help create more efficient processing of what humans can do, right? Whether that's a specific task like being able to speak to in a sales experience to somebody, or outside of that, being able to automate specific tasks like identifying problems within a company. What That's really where I first fell in love with AI. What we were doing back then was we were identifying the skills gaps for developers and designers in early stage and in growth stage startups that were invested and funded in Bogota, Colombia. And after that, I came back when I was in 2021, and I started consulting a lot of companies here. And what I realized was that there's still a huge gap. And you come back thinking, the United States is a really powerful, and it really is economically, but more so really powerful in the sense of technology adoption. And there's still a lot of small and medium-sized businesses in the United States, 80% of them exactly, that need a lot of understanding as to how they can innovate their businesses. A lot might hire a designer, they might hire a developer, but they don't necessarily know how to manage or guide that designer and developer to the success of their business. And the reality is small businesses don't have, the bottom line for them is they don't have the resources to spend like a large company does to wait for the return on investment from a designer, developer, or technology team. So we help them understand how they can build that technology to give them the quickest return on investment.
Super, super. Thank you so much. So, a little bit more on the foundation, again, for the audience here. I- In your current ownership structure, what does that look like? Are you the sole proprietor? Do you have outside investors? Do you
Mhm.
have partners? What's the organization like?
Yeah, well, we do have a co-founder. Our co-founder is our CTO in Colombia. So this is a startup. We started in the beginning of this year, January. We launched our first version of what was today known to be the Path Agent. And we did just open up a round and close our first check about 2 weeks ago with our startup. So we're excited about that.
That is awesome. Congratulations on that. So, in the startup phase with a partner outside of the country, what specifically is the role that you play in the business today?
Well, my essential task as the founder, I don't necessarily like the title CEO, but that is what I am today. I mean, for me, the CEO is the one that has to be in charge of giving life to the business. That means bringing in a sales funnel, obviously experimenting on sales funnels, going out there and speaking about the vision of the business with either partners or potential distribution channels. For instance, we're launching our agent with chambers of commerce around the Columbus area. With Bexley, we're in talks with other chambers right now as well. And just trying to find those strategies to continue to grow the business and at the same time align with not only the right customers, but also the right partners in the area.
Super. So, you've mentioned a number of things. You've got sales, you've got marketing, you've got the growth, and you've got the leadership as well. How would you divide out your roles on a weekly basis? What percentage is in the business and what's percentage is on the business?
I would definitely say that 40% of my job on a weekly basis, and that includes weekends, is essentially making new partnerships towards potential sales. The bottom line is, as a startup, we need to keep growing. And then I would say 10 to 15% is probably marketing. What we're working on there is very lean at this moment because what we want is the product to be sticky. The other 30%, I would say, would be definitely product. So we did just hire an AI engineer. He is in Austria. He works for Accenture, and we are building out our public version that is going to be beyond our alpha that we just launched today. We launched our alpha, but we are launching a public version in the next month as well. So working on product is a really big thing. And then I would say the last 20% is just establishing new partnerships, biz deving, essentially going outside of the comfort zone, understanding not only potential opportunities for distribution channels in Columbus, which is obviously the comfort zone because there's a lot of contacts here, but also seeing what's in San Francisco, New York, Miami, understanding new potential sales funnels to other cities.
Super, super. Now, in your definition there, you've used two different words. You've said partners, and then you've also said the new potential clients.
Mhm.
So, who primarily does your business serve?
Yeah, our businesses serve what we would call, in quotes, the traditional type of businesses. There's a new terminology that's come out a lot. I think there's a New York Times article that talks about millennials getting out of corporate and buying what they call boring businesses. These are the businesses that are actually the bottom line supporting the American economy today. As we know, and working in technology is getting a little bit harder. I think Accenture, which is one of the largest consulting firms, fired around 10 to 20,000 people last year just in the United States. And that's kind of a real indicator. It's a weak signal of the economy turning around and really relying on the backbone of the United States, which is construction businesses, painting businesses, businesses that have really contributed to the value of communities. And our real client is to serve those types of businesses that haven't necessarily entered into technology, might have great processes that they've built that are manual, but need to find that edge through technology and innovation and really understand what's the next level for them.
Awesome. Now, let's take that foundation and build upon it. So, what have you found in your brief business career so far that's working marketing? What marketing strategies are working for you right now?
I think honestly, the best marketing strategy is always word of mouth, and getting to that level requires a lot of work. What I mean by that is, first of all, you have to be able to tell your story online. You have to be able to tell your story on LinkedIn and channels that are different. I'm experimenting, for instance, and you can see this on one of our LinkedIn channels, with being able to tell the story of how we're taking a small business and basically flipping it into becoming a more innovative business. There's a great video that we have online on a $3 to $5 million landscaping business that needs to get past that ceiling, and they're implementing
Mhm.
us to help them understand how they can implement the right technologies with their 30-person crew. So what we're doing is we have to tell those narratives continuously. And what was really the impact to that business and why that business approached us? Because those are the types of problems that these types of great businesses in the United States are having right now in knowing how to implement technology.
Super, super. Let's dig down even deeper than that. What you've shared with your narratives and your stories and your case studies online is absolutely something to convince these companies that they want to talk to you further. What are the key buzzwords that these companies are using to find you in the first place?
Well, sometimes I think the buzzwords, even though they might be there, might actually be wrong. One of the first buzzwords was to build an app, right? Which is kind of a buzz phrase. And a lot of these companies, when they approach you, they don't necessarily know that building an app isn't the first step, but that is definitely a big understood buzzword in our field. But on top of that, I think a lot are looking for operational efficiency, which is another buzzword. They're looking for business growth. A lot of businesses talk about the ceiling that we work with. And what I mean by that is they get to a certain point in their revenue where they're 3 to 5 million. This point is always right there where they cannot no longer get past that point. And generally, that ceiling has to deal with two different things. Either operationally, they haven't figured out how to become more efficient and give more time for growth, or on the other end, they haven't really figured out a great distribution channel like a website or how to implement that website. And maybe they do have a website, but there might be problems with that website with the user experience, and they haven't identified that yet in order to continue to grow past that ceiling. So I think there's a lot of little buzzwords there, I would say.
Mhm.
Right now and today, what we do instead of focusing on the buzzwords, we like to really kind of pin down what specifically the business needs, understanding their specific business requirements. There's the businesses that we're working with now are 20, 25 years, word of mouth, are making 3 to 5 million a year. They're doing great in this area, but they just want to get past that specific ceiling. And how do they do that? They might even be looking at things like branding more than developing an app. They might be looking at something like creating a payments channel online. Those are the types of things that we might see that surround this small business.
Super. Anthony, thank you. If you would allow me just for a moment, I want to highlight for the audience one of the points that you've brought out, because I think it's very, very critical. And that is so many times when we, as the owners of a business, focus on marketing, we focus on the words, the terminology, and the experience we have, and completely miss what are the customers using to find us. And even if those words are wrong, if we know the sky is blue, but the customer, your best customer, is searching for what color purple should I apply to my sky? We need to be there when they ask that question. And I thought you did a very solid job of using that in how you connect with your customers. Again, it's step in your shoes or step in their shoes. And the best marketing, word of mouth is great, but the absolute best marketing is for you to be there when the next customer is looking for you. And that's fabulous. And I applaud you on that. So listen, we've spent some time on your marketing and on what your activities are today and what you're doing to grow. And I know that you mentioned that your prime time, the timing for those customers to come in is when they're looking to scale their business, to break that glass ceiling of 3 to 5 mil. I think that's fabulous. As you're doing that, um, that happens and will happen kind of quickly. But let's take your business, and I know you're just starting right now. Where in the future do you see your business in the next 3 to 5 years?
So, a lot of small business owners today, they'll try to guess at what they really need for their business. And this isn't a bad thing. Small business owners are resilient.
Mhm.
They're very they have this mentality of being able to solve it themselves. What we want to do is we want to become the primary channel that leverages an AI agent that allows small business owners to really understand what their business needs, not a generalized understanding, not a generalized framework, but a very business specific need. Because a business that does landscaping in Bexley, Ohio would be different than a business doing landscaping in Florida versus a business doing landscaping in Texas. And I do think that really understanding the market, really understanding the trends that are happening around you, your competitors, but also understanding what your next three steps are is going to be really important for any small business owner. And our future as Anarco Labs and with the Path Agent that we just launched, what we want to be able to do is become the primary interface for small business owners to really trust and understand how to grow their business. That for us is the most important aspect. A lot today might go to Fiverr, but when I go to Fiverr, I kind of guess, right? Finger in the wind type guessing of what do I need? What kind of talent do I need? What we want is we want to become that trustworthy interface for you to have a very unbiased perspective on how to grow and make your business more efficient.
I find that interesting that, when you look to the future, you've identified what you're doing, and yet you also identified who's your customer going to be in 3 to 5 years? Which generation? Is that a change or is that something that is more consistent?
So that's a great question because I think right now there are tailwinds in our economy of what we would call the largest transfer of wealth.
Mhm.
And about $124 trillion of that transfer of wealth is actually a business. So a lot of parents that might have been in the boomer generation or Gen X generation are looking to retire and they're looking to either do one or two things, either sell their business, which I think is very common, or to give their business to their children, right? That are right now 35, 36, 37, and might have been working in the business and looking at that transfer plan. So our future market will be this transfer of wealth market. We're looking at the market that trusts AI, that understands digitization, that understands also when they don't necessarily have all the answers, they can trust a specific type of understanding through AI to implement that understanding. And with the Path agent, this is just our first step to creating a trustworthy AI that allows you to have your business intelligence all gathered for a small business that is, again, one of those boring businesses, one of those businesses that are more traditionalized businesses, but Path helps you really understand how to implement actionable technology for your company without all the jargon, without having to know technology, without having to be a CTO or have a degree in computer science. Path for us stands for Process to Actionable Technology with a Human Machine Interface. What we're doing is we're creating that human machine connection, and it's that tool on the back end that really supports a small business owner and allows them to understand today I have to do this, and in the next 3 months we have to implement this CRM, we have to implement this strategy, and this is how we do it for our business, and we should have a return on investment that looks like this.
It's interesting because as I'm listening to you, that human machine interface for my generation, your generation, the next younger generation that's taking over from this wealth, those are really three different definitions. For me, shoot, the first human machine interface that I had was a typewriter. Okay. And, fighting CRMs because they're too complex, fighting AI because I just don't want to know it. These are some of the excuses, if you will, that many of my clients give me, and I help them through that to see that, chat GPT, AI, your AI, all of that is really nothing more than um, the push button start on a car. You still
Hmm.
have to start a car. I'm of the generation where I can remember where General Motors had me have two keys, one to open the door and one to turn the ignition. Now you don't really need either. You simply sit in the seat and push a button and everything starts. It's still a car, it still starts. It's just a new way of looking at it. And I love the fact that you're looking at how do we take these standard business processes, whether it's finances, whether it is sales and marketing, whether it is just the operational processes that you need to keep track of and track with key performance indicators, and helping people to make that transition um, into the new generation. With that, I know that you're just starting out. How do you see your leadership style today, and where do you think it'll be just a year from now?
That's a great question. I think that right now, my leadership style is to hire, and you have to kind of do this in the beginning of a startup. You have to hire great talent. And that great
Mhm.
talent has to be completely seasoned and trustworthy in order to execute on anything that happens around you because you're focused on the growth of the business. As that grows and as the business grows, your job is to then empower new talent. That the great talent that comes in the beginning and collaborates with you almost, and I heard Zuckerberg talk about this at the Stripe conference in San Francisco about 2 weeks ago. He still manages his teams as if they were in a startup, and he has the top 15 people around him, and they're constantly on phone calls. They're constantly having conversations. He'll talk to the person who's managing Meta glasses, and that person will go and manage 10,000 or 5,000 people to implement that, right? Whatever plan that was. And then on the other side, they'll talk about their AI initiatives at Facebook. And I believe that that's really about that kind of leadership is required at a technology startup too, because there has to be so much change and adoption quickly. So as the center, I would say that more of the center is the vision of the company, but I am just meant to impulse that vision with the right talent around me. As we grow, that right talent should be creating processes, should be having an understanding of how to identify goals for the company. My job right now is to set those OKRs, those KPIs with a direct team, and then eventually that direct team will become the new leadership team that should empower others and other new employees to keep growing the company.
Awesome. Now, you've hit on a couple of key points of leadership right there, and you mentioned Zuckerberg meeting with all of his key directors. That is a top-down type of informational. Um, I know, but I wanted to know, do you have anything in your communication and leadership style of bottom back up,
That's
360,
great.
if you will?
No, that's a great question. I didn't want to imply that, there's a top down here because at the end of the day, the bottom up comes from understanding boots on the ground and what is their feedback. I think the boots on the ground tell us exactly what we need to know about how to change the product, how to adapt the product, and how to really make it more impactful for sales.
Hmm.
There's actually a process in technology called design thinking that allows us to collaborate without to understand, for instance, what is a new feature that we want to launch on our platform? We implement design thinking with a team that is cross-functional, a salesperson, a marketing person, a developer, an engineer, an AI engineer, and a designer. And then in the center, there's a product manager just leading that cross functionality, that collaboration, so that they can come to new requirements for a product. That to me is a way of kind of taking out and extracting the knowledge of experts around you
Hmm.
in order to create a better product. And I think that that's kind of that bottom up essence. Right now, I mean, again, I don't lead the team necessarily from a top down perspective, but more from an in out. How do we resonate and keep resonating that vision?
Hmm.
Are you aligned? You create the solution, and if we agree on that solution, let's implement it as quickly as possible because there's traction there, there's understanding, and I really do believe in trusting your team as well. It's really key in the beginning.
100%. Everything that you have said, Anthony, is absolutely spot on target. What I have found through all of the years of coaching, and I take from football coaching, I take from Zuckerberg, I take, John Deere. I worked for John Deere back before we had cell phones and the internet. And it was a rhythm of communication. And when you understood what was going on with that rhythm of communication, you understood the completeness of the ability of the team to function. It's the same thing in the football team is you've got the I say top down, you said inside out. I love that vision. At the same time, you have to be receptive to the outside back in. And the purpose of that receptivity is to understand, did they understand my message?
Mm.
Are we getting to that point, or does something have to change? And when I worked for John Deere, the CEO, every Monday morning, he would have a 5-minute huddle. All of his C-suite people would be on the phone. 5 minutes later, they knew exactly what the CEO was focused on for that week. 5 minutes after that, they were at the director level. A half hour after that, everyone on the assembly line understood what the intent, the purpose, and the focus was of the CEO for that week. Now,
Mm.
the real magic that I experienced, and it took me a long time to understand and even recognize the value of this, was on Thursday evenings as the shifts ended. They had a reverse rally where everybody on the line got to report back to their supervisors. How did we do? What did we do? And then that's reported right back up. So Friday morning, the CEO is now listening 360 feedback, and he has the ability to adjust. Is this what I wanted? Is this the direction we want to go in? And it sounds so simplistic, and yet having the culture, having the trust, having the complexity of that communication, the simplicity is the proof of how effective it is. And there's a whole lot of moving parts. It's
Mm.
super. Well, listen, we have really covered a lot of ground today. And for those of you watching, I highly encourage you to save this. Anthony has given us a whole lot of great information here. And I think you're going to have to listen to it more than once just to be able to pull it out, because he's almost like me. He's a pretty fast talker. Before we get to the end, what I'd like to wrap up with is a section I call a rapid fire questions. This is just about 3, 4 questions of what's top of your mind. You ready for these?
Sounds great.
Super. Anthony, what's your key to success?
I think it's uncompromising resilience. I think it's about resilience in situations that were tough, that you might see that there's no light out, but being able to really collaborate with others and really pull out from underneath of whatever that issue might be in a certain moment, really pull out from there and continue forward. A lot of people say the only reason why you failed is because you gave up.
That's right. Knock me down 100 times, I'll get up the 101 time and I'll still win. Yes. Awesome. I love it. Anthony, what would you give one piece of advice to a new business owner?
I would say really solve a problem and identify what that problem is. And what I mean by that is ideas are great and they're fantastic. But when you can really identify a specific problem in a specific market and create a solution or a product for that, that is where you get what's known as the stickiness. People want and need your product or service, and that's the most important thing. Identify that problem first. Work backwards from the person and from the market.
Super, super. Thank you so much. If there was one area of your business that you could take a magic wand and wave it, and tomorrow morning it would be improved to the exact point that you want, what would that area be?
I would say the area of managing communication right now, I think that there's a lot of room for improvement, not only in my team, but also in myself and being able to manage daily communications. Exactly what you were talking about is creating a business culture and solidifying that business culture. In startups, that can be really difficult because startups are fast moving. So we're constantly making adjustments, we're constantly making pivots. That's the benefit of a startup compared to a mid-size or a large-size corporation where you can have more of a hierarchical understanding of what will be implemented. Startups need to adjust fast, and sometimes communication can get lost in those adjustments.
And I'm betting that you use multiple avenues of communication. You've got text, instant messaging, emails, and I'm betting that you probably have an entire inbox filled every 5 minutes in your emails. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. That's precisely it. And there's so
Yeah,
many
yeah.
different kinds of forms today that it's hard to manage. So,
It is hard to manage. And the best management is usually from the environment. When you have people thinking alike at your product,
mm,
you use that same similarity in the purpose of emails. I promise your email rate will go down 50%.
mm.
And if you're curious about that, we'll have to talk later offline. So listen, before we get to the last question of the day, Anthony, if there is somebody watching today, somebody that wants to get in touch with you and become your new customer, or they want to get in touch with you and ask you about what you said about communication and inverse inward out seeking in the way of leadership, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, first of all, please always reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm very available on LinkedIn, Anthony Regalado. You can reach out to me there. But the second thing is try out our new Path agent. We just launched our alpha today, and that is at anarco.io/path, P-A-T-H. So try out our Path agent, and we can definitely get in contact with you there.
Super. Thank you so much. So here's the last question. Anthony, what inspires you today?
I think the greatest inspiration right now is the fact that we really, as small businesses, represent communities. And communities today need new services. They need to feel seen, they need to be heard. And I believe that the United States right now is going through an interesting transition where we can either corporatize incredibly, or we can really start to focus on how to build better businesses, better services, and better products for our communities. I trust the small business and the medium-sized business in my area to serve me better than a larger company sometimes today. I think that what inspires me is supporting small businesses to be able to be competitive in this environment. And I think that this environment, there's a lot of opportunity for that to happen and for small businesses to blossom.
Absolutely. There's a common thing that people buy from other people, not from commodities. They also buy from people that they know, like, and trust.
Exactly.
Those are worn out. Okay. The real key factor that you've identified, the difference between the feeling of buying from another small business owner versus a mega corporation, is that trust. And that trust is actually on the inside of a triangle. And to
Mm,
gain that trust, there's 3 points to that triangle. One is your character,
mm,
one is your connection, and then after both of those are made, is your capability.
mm,
And I promise you, the capability is, like you said at the beginning of our interview, large corporations can throw a lot of resources at the capability, a lot more than small businesses can. So why is it that so many small businesses are winning in the connection and the character? That's your secret weapon. That's what's
mm.
going to take you, and that's what takes many, many small businesses past that $3 to $5 million plateau and helps them to scale beyond that. So, hey, Anthony, thank you so much for joining us today. This has really been a lot of fun. And thank you for sharing your journey. I know it's at the beginning of this journey, and I know that you've got great things in front of you. And to the audience, thank you for watching today. I know I was inspired by listening to Anthony. I hope you were too. So, folks, make it a great day, and bye for now.